U.S. stocks moving higher today, boosted by strong results from Bank of America and Morgan Stanley. And of course, there is the expectation of more interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. We're joined by Melissa Brown, Managing Director of Investment Decision Research at SimCorp. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Great to have you here, right here in studio in our new Scarborough digs.
It's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, it is. It's a more open landscape than I'm used to. I'm a downtown rat. So it looks like, despite this trade war, investors are deciding the economic disruption won't be that bad.
That seems to be what they're expecting. I think investors in general they know tariffs will be there. They've put some ceiling on them. I think last Friday, when that ceiling looked like it was maybe going to be broken, at least with China, it generated some jitters. But I think in general, investors are focused mainly and almost exclusively on the Fed.
Rate cuts. That's the magic helping to drive stocks higher.
Yes. That when we look at the kinds of stocks investors are buying, highly leveraged companies, for example, are doing well. Higher beta or higher volatility kinds of companies, they definitely are risk-seeking in their behavior.
Although there was a suggestion yesterday and on the weekend that people were getting jittery about the private credit market.
Yes, yeah, we have seen that. And I think we've actually seen that for a while. In fact, the stocks of many of the companies that are selling private credit instruments have gone down quite a bit. I think those jitters have been there for a while.
Would you see a real impediment to U.S. stocks going higher here? I mean, what is the major risk?
Well, I mean, I think there's, particularly in the U.S., the market is so concentrated that if we decide, or if investors decide that the AI trade is over, or at least maybe should be stalled, that could potentially bring the whole market down with it. If the Fed decides maybe that inflation is continuing to be a bigger problem than they had expected, and so are not cutting rates anymore, and say something to that effect. We haven't heard that yet, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility that could happen.
Maybe we could put up a 10-year chart for Walmart. Now, without commenting specifically on Walmart, I see it's trading in record territory today. And apparently AI is part of the euphoria. I mean, it seems like a stretch. Walmart, an AI stock?
Well, I remember back in the internet bubble when Starbucks first announced that they were going to have an internet strategy, and I thought it's hard to pour coffee, over the internet. Maybe this is a similar kind of situation. Although I think helping with inventory or other issues, this is probably a more real strategy.
Yeah, a record high for Walmart. Do you think there is some AI silliness going on, everybody trying to jump on it?
Well, I mean, seems to be permeating every kind of company. And I think certainly there are benefits to be had from AI. They may not go beyond, traditional statistical analysis in many cases, like inventory management. So there might be some silliness there, but the difference between now and the internet bubble, I see, is at least these companies are making profits to start out with.
In your business, have you encountered any presentations? I know nobody in your organization would do this, but from outside that you suspect is just AI slop.
Well, you can sometimes tell by the way something reads, well, that doesn't sound like anything anybody would say. But actually not a lot.
Too bad.
I think people are reading through it and saying, okay, we got to make this sound a little more realistic.
Yeah. What about Canadian stocks? Are they catching your attention at all?
Well, they are. I think, you've got the gold exposure. There are other, I think Canada has probably done better than the U.S. this year.
It has. Yeah. It's up more than 20%. That's right.
Yeah. So I think, there's certainly still a lot. The Canadian market isn't as concentrated as the U.S. market. So to me, that creates just a lot more broad opportunities across the whole market. You don't have to be in a very narrow segment to benefit.
in your portfolios, do you generally like to have a gold weighting?
I can't speak to that specifically. I think certainly it seems in these days that having a small weighting to gold is potentially, a good diversifier across some of the other issues that we've just talked about.
But you get the feeling that investors are happy to embrace risk right now.
They certainly seem to be quite happy to embrace risk. They went a little risk off on Friday, but it was back on Monday and it's still here today.
And I guess traditionally, when everybody's partying, it can be time to bid farewell and leave.
Yeah, it could be, but it's also hard to miss out on, what might, everybody has FOMO, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, that's right. The Fed, do you think the Fed is keen to go on cutting interest rates, or are they? Inflation has not gone away altogether.
I think the Fed is in a really tough situation because you do have employment doesn't look great. It doesn't look horrible, but they have to address that. But they also have to address the inflation situation, and you can't do both together. And my big concern is that we're hurtling, maybe that's not a good word, but we're moving towards a stagflationary environment. So low growth, but still higher than expected inflation.
And that is something of a central bank nightmare, isn't it? Because they'd be blowing it on both counts.
Absolutely, and it's very difficult to fix.
Yeah, because people have baked in inflation expectations. Meanwhile, the economy could be moribund.
Right, exactly. And it may be just pockets of the economy that are having issues and pockets of products that are, seeing inflation. But it's, when you start to add all those things up, it is a big concern. You also have, the issue of deportations from the U.S., which can drive labor costs up.
Oh, yeah.
And yet still, make the employment numbers look wonky. So
I wonder what the effect has been in California, for example, on the farm sector. They would employ so many people from Central and Latin America. It must be tough, or they must be very worried anyway.
I'm sure they're worried. I'm sure they're concerned. And then for many other companies, there's concerns about whether these Chinese tariffs, so you're worried about your workers, and then you're also worried about what am I going to do if the tariffs on the Chinese goods that I buy, either as inputs or I'm, importing to sell, what is that going to do to my overall business? I think those are big concerns.
Yeah, it's interesting though. After decades of saying, we'll let China take care of that, rare earths and manufacturing, let them incur the pollution. America is trying to do this U-turn very quickly.
Yeah, and it's a battleship. It's hard to turn it very quickly.
We better jump. Melissa, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Melissa Brown, Managing Director of Investment Decision Research at SimCorp.